Before we get ripped, we first have to exercise our brains. So let's understand how the muscular system works. Welcome, students, and all you curious folks out there. My name's Tarek, and today we're going to talk about the muscular system. The muscle tissue in your body is what allows your body to move in every possible way. It's not just about walking, picking something up, or lifting weights, but everything your body does, like breathing, eating, your heart beating, and so on. We can say that this is one of the most important and amazing systems because it's controlled by just two actions, relaxing and contracting. But in general, your muscles have a few functions. They are the movement of your body depending on the functioning of the bones and joints related to skeletal muscle, the movement of substances within your body, like blood, food, and so on, stabilization in the position of the body in and regulating the volume of organs. For example, muscles make it so your body can keep your head up. Upright, the contraction and support of smooth muscles will prevent the reflux of your stomach contents, for example, and so on. And also heat production, when your skeletal muscle contracts to do work and the byproduct is heat. But before I start explaining what these different types of muscles are, I need to remind you of some special terminology for this group. So every time I mention fibers, I'm talking about a muscle cell. If I'm talking about sarcoplasm, I'm referring to the cytoplasm of muscle cells. If I'm talking about sarcolemma, that's the plasma membrane. Myofibrils are the contractile fibrils, like actin and myosin. And the sarcoplasmic reticulum is the endoplasmic reticulum of muscle cells. So let's start talking about the types of muscles. Starting with smooth muscle, which is the type that moves your digestive tract, your respiratory system, and your blood vessels. It contracts slowly and independently of our will. That's why we can also call them autonomous muscles. They're made up of smooth muscle cells, which are elongated and have tapered ends. Their cytoplasm contains thin myofibrils without striations, and there's only one nucleus, which is elongated and located in the center of the cell, as you can see in the image here. These cells respond to neighboring cells or to hormones. This muscle also, it has efficient regeneration compared to the ones we're going to see next. When an injury occurs, the smooth muscle fibers that are still viable will undergo mitosis and repair the tissue. In the walls of blood vessels, parasites are involved. They multiply by mitosis, giving rise to new smooth muscle cells. This is how regeneration of this type of muscle occurs. Another type of muscle is the striated cardiac muscle, also known as myocardium. These are cells that have one or more nuclei in the central region, and the myofibrils have the same striations as those found in skeletal muscle, which we'll show in a moment. As a typical characteristic, they have intercalated discs, which are adhesion regions at the ends of cardiac cells. This cardiac muscle has a rapid and involuntary contraction. A major advantage of this type of arrangement is that once the impulse reaches one cell, it will easily pass on to others. This group of fibers joined together, when observed under an optical microscope, appears in the shape of a syncytium. And if you look under an electron microscope, you'll notice that intercollidated discs are formed. There are two functional syncytia that make up the heart. The syncytium, atrial and ventricular syncytium. The two are separated by a membrane of fibrous tissue. This allows the contraction of the fibers that make up the atrial syncytium to occur at a different time than the ventricular one. This also happens to ensure the perfection of the heartbeat. While the atrium contracts, which is called systole, the blood is ejected into the ventricle, which is called diastole. When the atrium relaxes during diastole, the ventricle contracts in systole, thus causing the valves to close and pushing the blood into the arteries. Because of this, the delay in these impulses, caused by the membrane of fibrous tissue between the atrium and the ventricle, results in a difference in contraction between them. The contractions are thus characterized as rhythmic, strong, and involuntary. This muscle does not regenerate. Heart injuries are called infarctions. The destroyed areas, such as damaged tissue, are eventually invaded by fibroblasts, which produce collagen fibers, forming a scar. And finally, we have the skeletal or striated skeletal muscles, which are the muscles attached to your skeletal system that allow your body to move. These, unlike the last type, you can control. This type of muscle is made up of striated muscle fibers, which can reach 30 centimeters in length. The main characteristic is the presence of myofibrils, with alternating light and dark bands arranged in parallel bundles. The myofibrils show alignment in their transverse bands. As a result, skeletal muscle has a series of transverse striations. Striated fibers are multicellular, with the nuclei located at the periphery. The contraction of skeletal muscle is rapid and voluntary, since it responds to our will. These muscle fibers are organized into groups of bundles, with each bundle surrounded by dense connective tissue. There are 3 types. The epimysium, which is a connective tissue membrane that surrounds the muscle. The paramecium, where the connective tissue membrane surrounds the bundle of fibers. And the endomysium, where the connective tissue membrane surrounds the muscle cell. Blood capillaries run through the connective sheaths. Muscle tendons are made up of dense connective tissue and allow the muscles to attach to the bones. Although the nuclei of skeletal fibers don't divide, they have a small capacity for regeneration. So we can assume that satellite cells are responsible for regeneration. These cells are also important in hypertrophy, when they fuse with pre-existing muscle membranes. Now, regarding muscle contraction, it works as follows. The myofibrils of striated muscles contain 4 main proteins: myosin, actin, tropomyosin, and troponin. The thick filaments are primarily composed of myosin, and the other 3 proteins are found in the thin filaments. The stimulus for muscle contraction is a nerve impulse, transmitted through a nerve. The contraction of the muscle fiber is regulated by the nervous system, where the synaptic contact area between the end of the axon membrane and the muscle fiber membrane is called the motor end plate, where neurotransmitters are released by neurons. If you don't remember what that is, take a look at the lesson on the nervous system. The nerve impulse will propagate along the sarcolemma and reach the sarcoplasmic reticulum, releasing calcium into the cytosol. This calcium acts on the troponin, changing the configuration of the 3 troponin units and causing this to happen. The binding site between actin and myosin is then exposed, allowing the myosin heads to interact with actin, initiating muscle contraction. After that, the calcium is immediately pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum, ending the contraction. Actin and myosin are protein chains that slide past each other to shorten or lengthen the muscle fiber. They can decrease to about 2/3 of their total length. The recovery period of skeletal muscle is so short that the muscle can respond to a second stimulus even while the contraction from the first stimulus is still ongoing. And with that, we wrap up the lesson on muscle tissue. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and share, and remember that we have a new video every week, so subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to always get the latest updates. Thank you so much.